Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. Google Podcasts is going away, so we recommend if you're on Android, you try Spotify or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. If you're an Apple person, you can go to Apple Podcasts. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our new Discord, $2.99 per month. That's where you can communicate about the Heat with Heat fans and with us all day long. Get away from the clutter of Twitter. We've got 10 channels there. The link is right here in the description on the YouTube channel and the podcast feeds. Again, it's Off the Floor. That is our new Discord. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network, an old sponsor that's come back, and we're glad that they have our friend Nelson and his team. Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. It's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. You can find them at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. If you're in a medical office, you definitely need to know about Nelson and his team. They can rent the C-Arm standalone or rent the C-Arm with an X-ray tech. Check it out. They offer complete in-office procedures where they bring the C-Arm, the table, and everything else in addition to the X-ray tech to you. So check them out. Mobile C-Arm and Staffing. Again, check them out at c-armandstaffing.com or 561-891-9620. And now, today's special episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yikes. Five on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the Five Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick, and Five Reasons Sports. And we got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. And our guest, and 10 years ago when I was in San Antonio, I did not believe that this day would actually ever come because at that point, Heat fans weren't too happy with him. We'll get into that a little bit as we go forward, but we're very pleased to have Patty Mills joining us, a long, distinguished NBA and international career. We'll talk about that a little bit here as well as we go forward. Pat, thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start here before we get into all the San Antonio stuff and then pivot into the Heat stuff. I used to watch Australian rules football on my TV when I was a wee youngin', which was a long, long time ago. It's all that ESPN used to show, like Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, and all that. And going back in your background, you actually played it growing up, right? Like, what could you explain the rules of that first before we start, and then why did you switch to basketball full time?
Geesh, mate, we might need a whole episode if I was to describe and explain all the rules of AFL. But basically, Australian rules football. I think every young boy and girl grows up in Australia, kicking a footy and wanting to play that sport. So, yeah, I played it, mate. It's played on a round oval. It's very skillful. You're running, a lot of miles. It's the only sport that you can get hit on a 360-degree radius and it be legal. So a very rough sport. No pads or helmets involved. The way to score is to kick the ball through a set of posts for 6 points, which is called a goal. And then you got the umpire doing the pointed fingers with white flags, but a very skillful and tough sport at the same time. And I think growing up playing that sport has definitely helped in some way of taking hits and being able to deliver hits and getting back up and playing. So, yeah.
Why did you make this switch to basketball full time? Because it looks at some point during your youth you decided to go that direction.
Yeah, look, I think basketball was always going to be the one. Looking back at it, but like I said, I was an only child, and had the opportunity to play a lot of different sports, and Australian footy just as well as rugby and rugby league, cross country, track and field, all these sports I think played a part in the basketball player that I was able to become and where I'm at today. So what made the switch at the end of the day, I think, was just the love of basketball and being able to be a worldly game. And that's the thing that I'm most grateful at the end of the day for what basketball has brought me, is the ability to travel around the world and obviously have a career on the other side of the world from where I grew up from. Versus Australian rules football is all in Australia, which is great as well, but just another dynamic.
Why do you think your game has been suited so well to international competition? Because I was watching the other night, and you're out there. Fournier was out there, and obviously he's had a lot of success playing for the French team. And I was talking to Tim Reynolds, who covers the Heat, but has also covered a lot of international ball. And he's like, you're a top 5 guy internationally over the past like 10, 15 years. What is it about your game that has been so well suited to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't think I've figured it out just yet. I just enjoy the opportunity whenever I get to play for my country and put those Australian colours on. And I don't know, mate. It's something about, for me, especially being able to dive deeper into the motives and values and meanings behind what it truly means to represent your country on an international stage at a World Cup, and especially at an Olympic Games. There's some deep rooted things there whenever anyone gets the chance to do so. But I was just having this conversation the other day that the game of FIBA, as well as the game that's being played now in the NBA, is slowly coming further and further apart. And I think that the FIBA game, the way that it's played, the way that it's reffed, less spacing, more physical. I don't know. There's just crafty ways there that you got to figure out. And I think the teams that do are the teams that play really well together, able to defend in transition, in half court, and then able to find ways to be able to counter that on the other end of the floor. So very crafted. You see basketball IQ start to come out, with the best teams at that FIBA level.
All right, I'm going to let Alex deep dive with you on some basketball stuff here, but I sent him today what your numbers were in the 2014 finals, because what did you say to me, Alex? It felt like he made 100 out of 100. Is that right? From 3?
No, yeah, you had mentioned the shooting numbers in that finals, and I'm like, and they were really good, but I was surprised because in my memory it was 1,000 for 1,000 or so. So, like, Heat fans, I think they still see you when they close their eyes and like try not to think about you before going to sleep, because man, that finals was just something else, man. It felt like the Spurs didn't miss a 3 as a collective.
13 of 23, I think, were the actual numbers, Patty. I mean, covering that finals, it almost seemed like you guys kind of perfected basketball for that short stretch of time in terms of the ball movement, the body movement. Like, there was nothing really. We can talk about the air conditioning. We maybe get into that at some point. But even with that, I think most Heat fans were like, we probably wouldn't have beaten them anyway, even without that entire experience. What was that like? Because you didn't play a lot. I was actually surprised looking back. You didn't play a lot in the 13 finals. I Corey Joseph got a lot of those minutes. I think you got into a couple of games. But then you were the 5th leading scorer in that finals. You in the 2014 finals again made 13 of 23 threes, and like Alex said, it did feel like you made about 101 game. Well, what was it about that group? Why were, because it seems like teams are trying to get to that level. Very few do.
Yeah, it's funny, mate. And I think the further on I go in my career, the more I realize just how fortunate and special that group was. And it's one of those things that I think you search for as an individual, you search for as a team, to be able to have a well-oiled machine like that in any team environment. And it just so happened that it was things clicked and things happened at the right moment, and for us it was the way that we're able to to defend, and then obviously the way that triggered our offense and the ball being able to move and feeding off that. The ball just pinged around. We shot open shots. Easy dump offs. Layups at the rim, open threes, and it was always about shooting a great shot. Good to great is what we always called it. If you had a good shot, but someone else has a great shot, whether it's an open three or whether it's a layup, they're the one that gets it. But like I said, that dynamic of that team and how it worked, it was one of those things in any sporting environment where things just clicked at the right time and for us to run away with it. But now that I'm finally a Heat, I let a decade go in between, that championship before I joined the Heat. So, hopefully some scars had a chance to heal.
No, they're still there for sure. But what I wanted to ask you, I know it's been really early so far in your time with the Heat, but are there any noticeable similarities between the Heat organization and the Spurs organization? Maybe the way they do things, anything that you've noticed, but more than that, I wanted to ask you about the way that you got to interact with your teammates so far. Like, how has that been? And just this whole experience where you're all of a sudden now on a team that's, trying to contend for a title. You had your stop there with the Hawks, and it's like you get thrown into the mix and into the rotation right away, getting significant minutes. Like, how has this whole experience been with you?
Yeah, mate, the experience has been unbelievable, to be honest. I'm very grateful, for this opportunity to be a part of this culture, this organization that obviously has been around for so long. And to answer your question about the similarities, yeah, mate, it's one of those places that has such a strong foundation that's been built over many, many years. Probably blood, sweat, and tears that's been poured into this organization for it to be where it's at. So to have the opportunity just to walk in the locker room and be in a winning environment, being in an environment where there's a ship that's being steered by someone and everyone finds their way to be a part and what their role is to be a part of this ship that's going in one direction, and that's to be the last team standing. And what I think, when you set out on this journey as a professional athlete, that's what you want to be a part of. You want to be a part of something bigger that's wanting to achieve the very best. And I feel that at home in this environment, just knowing that I have an impact. I have a part to play in what will hopefully be another NBA championship here in Miami. So again, it's similarities that I'm have found in San Antonio that has built me, I guess, for these moments, and just making the most of it. But my time already in such a short period of time has felt so comfortable that it actually feels like I've been here longer than what I actually have. The team's been great. The coaching staff has been great. The staff has been great. The whole organization has been great. And walking into the arena the first time and having the interactions with some security guards and other fans, and I think there is that history that I have with those fans from 2014. But at the end of the day, I'm just really fortunate to be in this environment, and I think I have a lot to give to this team and to this organization, that I'm hoping that will pay off in the long run.
Patty, a lot of people don't think about the off the court stuff. We had DeLon Wright on right after he got his buyout and came to Miami. He was talking about his adjustment. He actually had some history with the Heat organization because of his brother and having been around them quite a bit. But take us off the floor. So you get the buyout. Honestly, we didn't see it this one coming. We at that point, okay, because again, we didn't know what Josh's situation was going to be going forward. And we thought, okay, they got the buyout with DeLon, and that was going to be it. And so then all of a sudden, wait a second, okay, they're signing. We get the Woj bomb, I guess it was, or one of those, and all of a sudden you're coming. Like, what is that process like for you? Like, you find a place. Like, I mean, then you got thrown back out on the road, right afterwards? Like, just what's the human element of this for you, trying to adjust to a team on the fly?
Yeah, it's a great question, I think, and it's the part that probably not a lot of people see within the glitz and glam of this environment, but there definitely is a human aspect of it. Um, but yeah, it's there's definitely uncertainty there, and then you get thrown into the mix, and then it's straight on the road, and this part of being able to learn a whole new language, a whole new system, a whole new dynamic. Um, being in a hotel, trying to work out, ways to or where to live and what's going to happen from now until the end of the season. There's definitely all those human aspects. But I think you learn at a very young age or a very young career that this is what professional sports, this is what a professional athlete has got to deal with on a regular basis. These are the adversities that you commit to at a beginning of your career, and they can't be excuses at the end of the day. This is what it is. You're going to need to adjust on the fly, and get thrown in there, and away you go. So yeah, although there is the human aspects, I think as a professional athlete that's been doing this for quite some time now, it's just another day at the office, and you go ahead and try to do your best job to stay ready and be ready for when your name gets called to do your job, and that's what it is.
So, Patty, we'll get to Spo in a second here, but before we do, your best pop story.
Geesh, my best pop. So this is another one of those podcasts that I think we'll need to have a whole one dedicated
You
to
can come
him.
back. We're here every day, so that's fine. We'll create a regular segment for you.
Nah, mate, you can imagine how many there are over a whole decade. When being under him for such a long time at an important part of my career as well. Not only career, but my growing up, I guess you should say. I obviously come from the other side of the world. Here I am being, implanted in San Antonio, Texas, in this organization and culture of the Spurs. And I think, there isn't one in particular story that I would put my finger that would describe what I'm about to say, but I guess when you're in his locker room, the genuine care that he has for his players, and I guess the care that he has to make you understand or put basketball in perspective of the world, that it's only just basketball at the end of the day, and for his players to understand that with current knowledge, worldly knowledge, is something that I don't think a lot of other coaches do. But I would say that the first day that we got into the practice facility of the 2014 NBA Finals, we've just had a couple of days off. We're coming into the locker room, into the film room, and we're set to have our first meeting, to prepare for the Miami Heat. And the first thing that comes out of his mouth, and that pops up onto the TV screen, is a story about Eddie Marbo. And for those that don't know who he is, he's a very significant Australian icon in Australia, and it had a lot to do with my background and the connection of my culture back there. And it was just one of those examples where here we are, getting ready for another NBA Finals against the Miami Heat, and he managed to be able to just put it into perspective of what this really is. Yeah, we're going to go out there and prepare and fight to win another NBA championship. But here are all these things that, are really going on in the world that really matter. And for us as a team to understand that as well. So I remember it was like a big rock got in my throat and trying to swallow it, and it was just a real mind-blowing moment for me that I'll never forget. And yeah, that's probably one of my best ones, or most appropriate ones for this, I'd say.
All right, appreciate it. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit of basketball and Patty's fit with the Heat, where he'd like to see this season go. Before we do, want to mention great sponsor of the Five Reasons Sports Network. This is legal sports betting. You can find it at Better Edge. Use the code 5RSN. You get $20 to play, or the code 5 Reasons. That works as well. That's the number 5 with reasons. We currently have our brackets up, so check it out. It's free to enter. Free to enter the brackets. We'll have prizes for the top 3 spots. I won't ask where St. Mary's is this year. Check it out, betteredge.com. Use the code 5RSN and you'll get $20 to play. Check it out. We'll be posting it on the Twitter feed. All right, we're gonna talk some hoops here as we go forward. Alex, you take it over.
All right, so a couple of questions. First, how has Jimmy been treating you? And second, as far
That's
as
not a hoops question.
yeah, that's not a hoops question. Just how has
I
it
feel
been
like we have to
dealing?
ask that to everybody who comes in here. That's it. How's
Yeah,
Jimmy treating
I
you?
like
Go ahead.
getting players' reactions to just like playing with Jimmy and how has it been in general. And as far as on the floor, it feels like they've thrown you right into like the type of sets that they've run like Duncan Robinson through for years, Wayne Ellington before that, and just kind of shooters, Max Strus when he was here as well. You came in and you've been assigned to play that role right away. Obviously, you're not new to this. You still zip around the court, really, really well out there. You're very active. I've noticed on the defensive end, and you know, um, kind of trying to get into guys' bodies. How has it been? Just kind of getting inserted into this role right away, and what Spo has asked of you with kind of these weird circumstances with a good amount of guys out.
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess the first one on Jimmy, he's been great, mate. Just to be able to, witness what he's like as a professional, as a competitor, and being in the locker room and how high his basketball IQ is in understanding the game and seeing things literally unfold before they do. I think that's going to be a dynamic that I'll be able to really tap into as this season goes on and especially into the playoffs. Really eager for me to be able to, continue to learn of things on how, things operate and especially evolve on the court here. But yeah, look, it's a great question because, as I said before, I think being in San Antonio for so long in a weird way, I feel like has really built me to be able to cope with this situation really well, I believe. And I think the first thing that I really wanted to do was just really get a grasp of the system and understand how it works and understanding the terminology. It is a different language, a new language. What I didn't want was for me to be a dead weight, a dragging weight, where this team's trying to make a very strong playoff push by the end of the season, and for me to still continue to learn things as we're going, So I just wanted to learn as much as I could, as quickly as I could, and make an impact in any way on the floor. And surprisingly enough, it's been, I think, quite a smooth transition from that point and just understanding the game and feeding off other guys as well. You always talk about these ability to be able to adjust on the fly as a professional. And I think you do that by controlling what you can and the things that you mentioned, the offensive end, the defensive end, especially where you can, put your fingerprints on the game. And then the other things will come, I believe. I've always prided myself on how I can make a positive impact, on the game, on the team, and then everything else can kind of evolve from that. But at the end of the day, there's definitely, chips on my shoulder that I still play, and that comes out of me for the most part. And then having that, competitive attitude to want to win another championship and want to do your part extremely well for the betterment of the team, So look, there's, however many more games left and you can see the teams, you can see the glimpses or patches of the team being really solid on the defensive end and tighten up a few, loose ends on the offensive side. But at the end of the day, there's a clear vision here of what we're trying to do. And I believe, guys buying into their role and their part of what it's got to take to get there at the end. And this ship is driven by obviously a very, elite coach. It's just belief at the end of the day of how we're going to get this thing done.
I want to ask you a more of a general NBA question before a couple more personal ones before we go forward. I was looking back at availability of players just 10 years ago. Okay, so back to 13, 14, and even the big three Heat teams, and everybody played 70 plus games. It just seemed like even Dwayne, who we'd be like, oh, is Dwayne going to play tonight? And Dwayne got up to 65, 70 games, even in the what has happened in the league? Like, what, honestly, because it just seems like every night it's okay. This, without getting into specifics of particular players, but it's just like every team, it's like I'm missing, and the Heat in particular, but almost every team, it's like we're missing 3, we're missing 4. We don't know when this guy's going to come back. Now they had to put in this rule of 65 games. I mean, I feel like an old guy now saying, "Oh, back in my day," but you've been in the league long enough now. Like, is this more coming from the teams that are more protective of the players? They don't want them to have sustained injuries? Is it coming from the agents? Is it coming from the players themselves? Why do you think we're seeing players not be as available as they were during, say, your prime?
Yeah, it's a great topic, and I think it's definitely one, a discussion to have on what's better for the player for sure. I think the availability of all the science that's available now has played a big part. But at the end of the day, I think what's the best for the player, and how do you keep the players on the floor as best as you can, and keeping them out for a certain period of time, does that make them available for more in the future, where you can prevent long-term injuries? I think these are all questions that always surface to the level here, and what's the best way around it. But there's no question that back in your day, as you mentioned, that there's players that definitely, do whatever it takes to be on the floor and to fight for your team. And I'm not saying that has completely gone away, but players also want to be on the floor when they're at their best, 100%. And if it's not 100%, then they feel like they can't give their all, So I think there's a bit of that too. It all comes down to, look, when it matters and playoffs are here, that's when everyone shows up and wants to give their best. So there's that as well. So I don't know what's right or what's wrong. It's at the end of the day, it's all about what's better for the player, and if the player is healthy and is ready to give it all. I've always prided myself on being available and doing whatever it takes to be out there on the floor and play my part. So that's what I know. Going back to the start of our chat about AFL and Australian rules football, I think they're all things that have definitely prepared me for life in the NBA.
Yeah, you definitely had to play through some things there. I mean, I ask you in part because Pop was one of those who, did some load managing from time to time, and then the Heat never did it, or they claim they didn't do it, and now we see them doing it more. So it seems more teams have moved towards sort of Pop's philosophy on it than maybe was the case 10 years ago. I do want to ask you, because we mentioned Pop and we mentioned Spo, and I just hear you talk in the way that you do talk about the game, and I don't know when you have an intention to retire, but when you do, is coaching something that you want to get into?
It's a great question. Everyone always asks me about that, and Look, yeah, I haven't ruled it out completely, but it's something that I enjoy teaching and learning all the things that I've experienced in my career as a player and how I can, help, pass that on to younger guys that are trying to navigate this space as a professional. But who knows, mate? I still feel like I got years left in me. We got the Olympics coming up, which will be my fifth
Mhm.
Olympics in Paris, which I'm extremely excited for. But definitely, a lot of years left to be able to pour it all out and keep going and until the wheels fall off, as they say.
I'm going to let Alex ask the last question, and this is why, because I've noticed that the two of you share something. Alex is known for using the phrase, and you noticed it, right? You
Yeah.
noticed it. He uses the phrase a lot at the end of the day. That's kind of become his catchphrase, and you use the same phrase. So I'm going to let you guys, at the end of the podcast, at the end of the day, let Alex ask the final question. And Patty, we appreciate you joining us today.
No worries.
That's hilarious. That was definitely going through my mind for sure. But the last thing I wanted to ask you about was, you had a lot of time with Spo. I mean, Jesus, with Pop, and now you're with Spo, and Spo is out here like he's very much known for throwing out a lot of different types of defenses. Some opposing players, you hear them call it like junk defense. And I know that's been thrown out forever. And the Heat are obviously a team known for their kind of defense first mentality. What has that been like? Just kind of coming in. I know you mentioned having to learn the new language because guys have different names for plays and sets and all that, but as far as having to adjust to a lot of different coverages on the fly. Like last night, we saw a lot of zone, and that's another thing they're known for. What's that been like? And just in general, what it's been like overall for you dealing with this team and with Spo?
Yeah, well, the understanding of a defensive system, and that it's five guys on the floor doing the job together to be able to stop the other team. At the end of the day, you're trying to stop them from putting the ball in the basket, as simple as that may be. And sometimes, doing things that just throws the other team off rhythm and gets them into a funk, fuels us on the other end to run down the other side. So I think the important thing here is team defense, and everyone understanding, everyone being on the same page in what's going on the defensive end of the floor. This culture has been so strong with that over the years of stopping teams and keeping teams like we've the last however many games we've played now, we've kept teams in the 90s or low 100s, and it's definitely enough to be able to win games. So again, it's that part of now you're one part of a defensive system that you need to do really well for a team to stop the other team. So I know I'm going into a little bit of detail there, but at the end of the day, it's defense, it's effort plays, it's understanding, positioning on the floor, but just play defense and leave it all out there. Hustle plays, loose balls, dive on the ball, come up with the possession. All those things, I think, it's all between the ears, as Pop used to say, and that's what it really comes down to on the defensive end. So, look, I've enjoyed every moment of being a Heat so far. I really, really have. I'm not only just saying that, but it's a part of being. That in that winning environment and having part of that DNA. What will it take? What will you do to sacrifice for the betterment of the team? And I think having that mindset is a championship winning mindset, and obviously the more guys that have that mindset on one team, you give yourself a definite chance. So I'm loving learning, continuing to learn more from Spo and how his mind works from a team aspect, and looking forward to this last stretch of the season where every game, every possession matters. And like I said, it's leaving everything out on the floor.
Well, when you figure out how Spo's mind works, I've been working on that for 30 years. So you can come back on the podcast anytime and share that with us. At the end of the day, that's a great way to end. Thank you again to Patty. We wish you the best of luck the rest of the season. Hopefully, it's a long playoff run because I know that's what you came here for. And we'll catch up with you at the arena when you're back in town. Thanks a lot for doing this. Appreciate it.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me.